Union of the Unknowns, a podcast dedicated to the exploration of modern culture, presents a weekly digest of current events that may have slipped past your radar. This is not your mama's news.
Welcome to another episode of the Union of the Unknowns presents Not Your Mama's News. Today with us, I will be hosting. I am Ashley Think Change Repeat. We have with us our fellow unknowns, and we'll start out with Stella Q. Hello, Stella. How are you?
I am now unmuted. Thank you. How are you?
Doing very well. Thank you.
Excellent. Good to see you
Happy
guys.
you are here. With us, we also have Big Perm, permnation.com. How you doing, Perm?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing very well. And then last but certainly not least, Terry Canary, the Volcano Buster. Hello, Terry.
Hello, everybody.
All righty. Well, we have a good show for us today, and we are going to kick it off with Terry. I think there has been a little bit of a shakeup that you may or may not have heard about with the World Economic Forum. So, Terry, go ahead and kick us off.
Yes, Ashley, I think you would describe it as a great reset at the World Economic Forum, because Mr. Schwab is no longer the leader of this great organization. Sorry, I'll stop doing my Klaus Schwab now. So he decided 2 weeks ago he was going to step down at the ripe old age of 88. And he said he made the usual political sort of excuses saying, it's time to hand the reins on to somebody else. I've done it for long enough. But then subsequently, and this is recently breaking news, it turns out that he's going to be investigated by the WEF board for financial and ethical misconduct. So, as usual, these people who like to preach these higher moral standards from a sort of elite point of view, it turns out probably that behind the scenes they're not quite as clean and clean living as they like to try and promote to the people watching them. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this investigation. But given that it's being conducted by the WEF itself, my hope for a sort of a fair trial and justice is not great. And the new guy is the new leader of the WEF. He's stepped up from sort of second in command. It doesn't really look like he's going to be awful much better, because he's the former head of Nestle, or Nestles, as I used to call them in the UK, the world's largest food company. And amongst his beliefs is that water is not a human right, and he basically believes that Nestle should be able to own all the water and sell it to you at a profit. In fact, The Guardian had an article quite a long time ago, which I've just found, about they were getting all this water from a national park. Well, it's federal land anyway. It's actually owned by the Forest Service, I think. I don't know if that's technically a national park, but it was federal land. They were taking all this water from there. They got 45 million gallons in, I think it was 2018, and they didn't pay anything for it. But sold it at handsome profit. So I'm not sure we can expect much better from Mr. Schwab's successor, who's called Peter Brabeck Letmathy, or perhaps Letmoth. He's probably French. So there we have it. So Mr. Schwab has been the victim of a great reset at WEF.
Yeah, we had quite a bit of chat about his successor, the former Nestle CEO, and we discussed, well, honestly, the picture that has been shared online is horrifying. It's very disturbing. He definitely looks like, a cyborg, a lizard person, Black Eye Club, and Stella had said Terminator. he's giving horrific vibes. Absolutely. And I do, just my 2 cents, I feel like if you're dealing with the World Economic Forum, it may be a lot like the police whenever they investigate themselves or any other government agency, and they'll likely find that they did nothing wrong.
Yeah, his eye is very freaky. It definitely looks like he's either been
Absolutely.
punched or there's some, moldy old artificial eye that's all they had to pop in there into the slot, for the day. You haven't got your new one back yet. I don't know. It just looks very strange.
Who'd have thought that they could find a successor that looked even stranger than Klaus Schwab to lead the WEF? I mean, it's quite an achievement, really. They're to be congratulated on that, I think.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I was like, I should have effing known that whoever they got to fill this MFer's place was going to be like more horrifying. I mean, why am I ever caught off guard by these people? I have no idea, but I was. So,
I'd love to have been at that casting session. Can you just imagine all the sinister characters they must have gone through to go, yep, that's the guy.
It was like a Bond villain lineup.
Yes, it would have been like that scene in it'd be like the scene in Blazing Saddles where they're choosing all the baddies to destroy the town.
Yeah, exactly.
I was going to say something else, that amongst the charges they're leveling at him, he's supposed to have been kind of, I think, racist and sexist. And again, that doesn't really surprise you, does it? It's like all these politicians, they love to preach sort of equality and, we're all the same here, but behind the scenes, they're more racist and sexist than all the people that they like to lambast. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if all these things were true. And apparently him and his wife have been going on all these jollies using WEF funds, sort of thinly disguised. It's like there's always these things that we used to laugh about in the UK. You get these sort of members of tiny little local councils going on fact-finding missions to Fiji or something. They'll say, yeah, well, it's very important. We need to see how local government works in all places in the world, particularly the nice ones with palm trees.
Right.
And beaches.
Yeah.
So I think there's been a lot of that going on as well.
So there was really quick, because I want to ask y'all, there was some other 88-year-old that was stepping down, and it is slipping my mind.
Oh, that was the Pope. He died at 88.
The Pope.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up later, but yep. Pope. So 88, it's all the rage these days in things.
Yeah, and I think there's, if you pay attention to the number stuff, obviously. Yeah. So, well, maybe we will bring that full circle at the end of the show. And
Hey, Terry?
I was just going to say, as to the Pope, he really is stepping down, if you know what I mean.
Yes, he is, in that true sense. I didn't catch the name of the incoming lizard. All I heard was Mr. Lickmoth. Is that right? Mr. Lickmoth? The bug guy?
Oh, he's called, he's got a double-barreled name. Hang on. He's Peter Brabeck - Let Mathy, or possibly Let Moth. Depending on where he's from.
I prefer Lickmoth.
Doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, does it?
No, not exactly. Nestle themselves, they're a pretty nefarious company. I'm just going to quickly read out a short list of slightly dark things that have occurred within the Nestle nest since the 1970s. They've been accused of, companies reported use of, slavery, child labour, that's all fairly standard these days, incidents of contaminated infested food products, preventing access to non-bottled water in impoverished countries, actively spreading disinformation about recycling, illegal water pumping from drought-stricken Native American reservations, price fixing, extensive union busting activity, deforestation, lobbying to support misinformation about infant and women's nutrition. I know they were trying to discourage breastfeeding at some point. And I'll just add to that list their use of palm oil. So there we go. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Pretty nice.
somebody was in the chat saying that they thought that Nestle was the one that would give out people that needed like locals baby formula for free and then started charging them.
That's right.
Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, just one more thing to add. I remember seeing a story about this ages ago. One of the reasons that California suffers from very frequent droughts is because Nestle have got a huge bottling plant and they take away, I can't remember how much of the water it is in California. It's a ridiculous proportion. And of course, they're not paying for that either. So, I think if Nestle weren't taking all the water from way upstream, California would have a lot more water to go around than they do at the moment, and maybe they could actually use some to fight fires. So yeah, they're a bad company. So my hopes aren't high for this new guy.
I wonder if that's tied in with that very rich billionaire type couple that seem to own a lot of the water rights in California. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yes, those are the people that have the like pistachio nuts and they have Fiji water. I don't know if it's the same because Fiji is its own brand, but that I was thinking of those people too, but I can't remember the family name right off the top of my head.
Oh, I'm sure they all party together the weekend.
Oh, for sure. So I think overall we're not surprised that a new lizard person has replaced Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum. He's hatched, and it looks like he's hatching another one out of his eyeball. And we, and just for me, I should not have been surprised that it was going to be a worse villain than Klaus Schwab, but there we go. So we will keep an eye on that, most certainly. Now, before we head to our next story, I want to thank everybody for joining us live today.
Same as the old lizard.
Yes. So I want to shout out some of our friends in the chat over on YouTube. We have Keel. Hello, Keel. We also have our buddy, Gentleman Skeptic, Sir Tim of the Tunnels. Thank you so much for joining us. Then over on Rumble, we have a handful of folks over there as well. We have Jason Barker, Knights of the Storm. Hello, Jason. Hello. We have Def Not Xer. I don't think I've met you before, but thank you so much for joining us. We have Birdhouse Blues. Also want to shout out the artwork that he made today and shared that out on Twitter.
Def is an OG from the Temple Hat Discord back in the day that got nuked.
Nice. Shout out Def. Thank you guys. And I think I have hit everybody so far. Oh, and then we have Doc Spoiler here, my buddy Doc Rock from the very northern climate up in Canada. So thanks so much to everybody for joining us live. We really appreciate it. And
on YouTube, I'd like to shout out to Perm for joining us in the chat there. And also to Mr. Dream Real. Hello. Good morning.
Oh, hello, Dream Real. I was looking for you over there and I didn't see him. There he is. Hello, sir. Wonderful. Well, we're so thankful to have everybody. Thank you so much. And let's move into our next story. So Perm has a story for us, and we've talked about this a little bit before about what happens when the government looks like they're doing something good, removing a lot of regulations, firing people, consolidating, but what may be behind that. And one of the things, the professions that we have discussed as potentially being affected is the law. So Perm, what do you have for us?
Yeah, so I found this article on Activist Post. I've been trying to get some of my news there a lot more lately since Charlie Robinson purchased the website this year. And there was this article I came upon that was titled Goodbye Jury Trials, Hello Digital ID, 10 Recommendations from the Crime and Justice Commission. And I was going to go into the 10 recommendations when I realized I don't know what the Crime and Justice Commission is, so I should probably look into that first. So apparently it's the Times Crime and Justice Commission, a UK-based initiative launched by the Times newspaper this time last year. And basically they've done an inquiry looking into challenges in the British criminal justice system, including knife crime, cybercrime, court backlogs, prison overcrowding, and declining public trust in law enforcement, things like that. And so these are their 10 recommendations. Introduce a universal digital ID system to drive down fraud, tackle illegal immigration, and reduce identity theft. Target persistent offenders and crime hotspots using data to clamp down on shoplifting, robbery, and antisocial behavior. Roll out live facial recognition and other artificial intelligence tools to drive the efficiency and effectiveness of the police. Create a license to practice for the police with revalidation every 5 years to improve culture and enhance professionalism. Set up victim care hubs backed by unified digital case file to create a seamless source of information and advice. Introduce a new intermediate court with a judge and 2 magistrates to speed up justice and reduce court delays. Move to a common sense approach to sentencing with greater transparency about jail time, incentives for rehabilitation, and expanded use of house arrest. Give more autonomy and accountability to prison governors with a greater focus on rehabilitation, and create a college of prison and probation officers. Restrict social media for under 16s to protect children from criminals and extreme violent or sexual content, and raise the minimum age of criminal responsibility to 14 to take account of new developments in neuroscience. So I think we all see a pattern there of more digital everything and basically being surveilled 24/7. And it reminded me of an article I was reading home recently that a highway that I go on every day is changing the HOV lane to one that you can pay to use whether you have people in your car or not. And I always wondered when I would see those other places how they know whether you have people in your car or not. Well, it specifically said now you have to purchase this device, keep it in your car, and set it to carpool mode to use that lane if you have people in it. So to even use the HOV lane now, you have to be tracked.
That's creepy.
It's very creepy, and I just keep seeing more and more things that are going this direction here and obviously in England and everywhere else.
I'm not sure if it's the same thing. I think it probably is. They call them transit lanes here, where you can only use them if you've got more than one person in the car. Is that sort of the same thing, isn't it? Yeah. So, I mean, people would just put dummies in the passenger seat. Easy.
Yeah, well, apparently they're doing away with that by making us have a tracking device if we want to use it.
Yeah, right. That you have to purchase, mind you. How rude.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
if we don't have it, they'll just send us a bill in the mail that's twice the amount if you use it by yourself
yeah,
with the device.
it's just another tax on people, another toll, basically a toll road
Yeah.
to use roads that you already pay for. So it is concerning, and I definitely think that there's a lot of information out there that the screws are definitely being tightened on us as far as the behavior nudges and trying to kind of reduce just or modify the behavior of humans.
Yep, another tax. Yet another one. Tax to the eyeballs.
Yeah, so that was my story. We've all seen it all coming, but I just wanted to point out actual case of this thing happening in my personal life. And when I saw this, that's just everything I've been seeing lately.
Yeah, I've been sort of noticing that too, the little implementations of this here and put that there, and it's like slowly building that bricks wall around us. Yeah.
Well, and then we have this Real
Falling
ID
slowly.
thing going on in the United States where you won't even be able to travel domestically without a Real ID as of, I think, May 7th. So, 2 weeks from now?
Yep.
You either have to have a passport or this Real ID. And
Terry.
there's
So
been a
sorry.
lot of
Perm.
articles of people kind of like freaking out about this coming up.
What was that for? Sorry, I missed. What was that for? Did you say air travel?
Yes, so we need a passport to travel internationally, but now, as of May 7th, you'll need this real ID or a passport to travel domestically. If you just have a regular driver's license, they won't let you on an airplane.
Oh man! Wow, here
Yeah.
it is.
So I want to circle back to that, but I wanted to get to Terry really quick, and then we can cover some of the real ID stuff. Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's a Trump thing, isn't it? The real ID, supposedly to tackle the immigration problem. But I felt I ought to comment since this was coming from the UK, and there's so many depressing things coming from the UK now. I felt I ought to comment, but it made my heart sink, really. Stella and I were talking about this recently, that maybe we should have a show on it, all the terrible things that happen in the UK and Europe. But it just depresses the hell out of me to see my old country going down this awful authoritarian route. It really is a total shit show these days. And they're talking about pre-crime as well now. And of course, they're very famous for arresting people for posting things on social media. There are now hundreds of people in jail because of nasty words they've put on our social media posts. And they send like 6 policemen round to your door and say, I understand you wrote something nasty about the school board or something. It's just ridiculous. And you guys in America should be happy, because believe me, there are much better things happening over there than there are over here. I'm quite envious, really. I mean, obviously things aren't perfect over there, but things are just getting terrible in Europe. They're really, they're cancelling elections. They're imprisoning their political opponents. It's just like what was happening under Biden, what Biden was trying to do, really, but didn't quite get away with it. But unfortunately, over here, they are getting away with it. And
Wow.
I think
it's a
only
worry.
thing.
If I ever have to go back to the UK, I think I'd have to be very careful. I mean, a lot of people that I follow, people like Robert Malone and somebody else, another doctor that I quite like, I watch on Substack, saying they're probably never going to set foot in the UK because, they're likely to get arrested. It's just crazy. Anyway,
I
back to you
think
guys.
some of the only things that are slowing it down here is our sheer mass and population, and the fact that we give so much more power to the states, even though it's not as much as we'd like it to be. We do have a lot more power to the states instead of federal power.
So, Gentleman Skeptic here has been saying that that they've been working on the real ID thing in the works since 2005, and that his state has had the real ID since 2013.
Yep.
I don't know what state that is, but we don't want to dox you, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, wow.
I've had
Yeah.
a real ID for 5 years. I got it before I ever thought about whether I should get one or not.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm in the same boat, but it's been something that has been introduced into the ether, and then gradually the pressure has been cranked up on that, and different administrations have kind of kicked the can. But obviously we see with the new Trump administration that they are being serious about that. And so I wanted to share a quick anecdote. Jason Barker over on Rumble said that one of his friends was attending a family friend's military graduation, and she did not have a real ID, and she was actually turned away from that event. So I think that some places, and maybe I'm not sure if it's all military locations, but at least some places are getting really specific about this. And then I've heard some other things, and maybe the chat can confirm for us that they have maybe an RFID in there. I'm not 100% sure on that either, but it's definitely concerning. And I think setting a precedent for eventually when they want to move you to have, maybe an ID for the internet or something like that.
That seems to be just when you said about how, you've got to have everything, crossed and dotted to get into the military. It's actually quite difficult, apparently, at the moment for young, very eligible people, not just men, to get into the military. It's like these, it can take a couple of years before the whole process sort of gets into full swing, which is not the way it used to be. So, yeah, I guess they're just trying to weaken everybody's military. That's probably what it looks like.
If there's
Which
an
makes sense.
RFID in there, it's not visible like it is on like access cards and credit cards.
Yeah, there'd be some hidden way that they've figured out to put it in now. They'll all announce that it's actually been inside us for the last decade and we didn't know.
So it seems like there's some
They
debate
put
on
it
the
straight into your
RFID
brain
question.
when you weren't looking.
They're
Yeah.
in the jelly babies. It's that little extra bit on the men ones. Sorry.
Yeah. So who knows, but I think we all know the general direction that this type of thing is moving in. And I wish that I would have known, but I got my real ID, I mean, a long time ago when I moved back to my state and had to get a new license, and it was already rolled out. It wasn't required, but I just didn't know any better at that time. Obviously, I wish that I would have held out. But Jason was saying in the comments that it basically, even this is your last chance, so even if you don't get it now, that you are going to have to get it next time, that the option of opting out is not going to be there. And then especially for people that may have to have it for certain events, or if it becomes required to travel, like what are you supposed to do? And I think that's just going to have to be a personal decision of whether or not you just don't want to fly anymore, which obviously I understand that, but sometimes life happens and you have circumstances that make it really challenging not to try to fly. So,
I mean, you can
So-
use a passport. Most people have I mean, I guess not most, but before this ever was introduced, a lot of people had passports, so you can keep a regular ID until they have no more regular IDs.
okay.
Yeah, I haven't had a
that's good
passport since
info.
1999.
Yeah.
No intention of getting one either.
And the crazy things, you shouldn't have to have a passport within
I
the
know.
United States.
It's so
Terry?
stupid.
I just want to add that they're bringing in a similar system in the EU where you're going to, if you don't have a digital ID, which I think could probably be a passport with a chip in it, which a lot of British passports, certainly modern ones, have, they make it very difficult for you to get in and out of the EU now. So bear that in mind if you're traveling to Europe, guys. You might need to have some sort of digital ID.
Yeah, we can't even go to the EU without a visa now. They just changed that within the past year.
And I guess like with everything, it'll all sort of filter down to the point where it'll be where you can't even visit the next suburb without some sort of digital ID,
Keep us in our 15-minute cities.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Bring your spades, people. Start digging.
Yeah. And
Yep.
especially with the like what we talked about with the combination of all of the things that they're doing, right? They're making it more difficult to have a gas powered car. They're really pushing electric. Obviously, we've got the cell phone tie-in. And even if you do have a gas powered car, they are on the grid, right? Most of them have some type of like computer in them these days. So it's just, we've talked about this all the time, but the slowly boiling frog, but all of these things kind of coming in from different areas, and then also tying in like some of the medical stuff that's happening. And we've talked about recently, like in the last maybe month and a half, that Bill Gates was saying that basically the AI is going to change the way medicine is done. So we know that they have eyes on all facets of life.
They are watching. Yeah. Even with gammy eyes. Hey, there's a challenge. Anybody who does art or whatever, if you guys want to put together a piece of art of the new leader of WEF with spawning strange creatures out of his left eye, please. That would be great. Thanks. I do it myself, but my computer's broken. So,
Yeah, he's
I had a really
villain.
good Klaus Schwab meme that I was just about to share, and this would have been the perfect time. But yeah, broken computer, can't access. Anyway, we move on.
Hopefully you'll get back, and then we will share it out.
Yep.
Okay, so I think, Perm, do you have anything else that you wanted to add in on your story? Are you all set?
You're muted, man. He's got his mouth full.
Yeah.
My mouse cursor wouldn't show up, so I couldn't unmute myself.
Hey.
One thing Jason brought up is biometrics, and I had mentioned in the chat that Whole Foods gives you the option to pay with your palm now. So there's another step, and that's a Bezos company.
Whole Foods. There's a clash.
They have had that option in some of the stores where they do the palm scanner. I had heard that they weren't doing that well, but that's a while ago. I haven't checked up on that particular issue. We do have a question over in Rumble, Stella. Where do you want them to send the artwork?
Oh, yeah, good point. No idea. We'll have to ask Ashley that one, perhaps, at the end of the show.
Sure. I'll go ahead and tell now. You can send it to us at Birdhouse Blues. That's who's asking the question. You can send it to us at unionoftheunknowns@gmail.com, and I can message you that later.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. So if we're all set on that, Pern, then I'm going to go ahead and talk about the story that I brought. This is something that was brought up in our Prop Report Discord before, that there is mysterious increase in brain tumors among nurses in a Massachusetts hospital ward. So the story that I'm covering today is from Dr. William Mackis, who's somebody who has been on the ball about discussing the fallout of the vaccines, the COVID vaccines. And he does talk about other health issues as well. So this one we had talked about, I had seen it in other places, and I wanted to address a little bit of, or just have a clarifying conversation, basically. So I had heard some varying numbers that it was up to 17 people. My understanding is that is not confirmed at this time, that it is still being reported as 10 people, 10 nurses that all worked on the 5th floor at a hospital in Massachusetts, and that they have a brain tumor. So not only is it just 10 people getting cancer, but it's all specifically a brain tumor. And supposedly it is on a spectrum. So some of them are benign, some of them are malignant, with at least 3 people so far needing to have surgery to treat the cancer. And the nurses have requested an independent investigation. The hospital has done its own investigation, which is within a CDC guidance. And once again, a theme that we see in so many different areas is that they didn't find anything that would connect all of these cancers together. However, obviously something is up. You know, we've seen this time and time again in many places that have a cancer cluster. Something is going on and something is causing it. Now, some of the things that they had mentioned that were potential factors could certainly be, working in a hospital environment, you were exposed to harsher cleaners. I saw somebody even suggest that their scrubs there were washed in formaldehyde, that the building is very, very old. There's possible radon exposure. There's possible asbestos exposure. It is not located near the imaging or radiology department. However, it is above a pharmacy. So one of the things that they had questioned was maybe the location of the hood in the pharmacy. So what sort of off-gassing are they getting from the pharmacy on this particular floor? But this is the it's the floor. Now I know that there are many different areas under like prenatal care and neonatal care and dealing with babies, but this is the maternity floor, basically. So they have several different areas under that heading, and not everyone worked there all at the same time. And something that Terry and I discussed beforehand was, is this possibly something related to the mRNA injections? And of course, I think that that's something to consider. However, some of these cases were reported before the start of COVID. So it would have been preceding the rollout of an mRNA vaccination. And at this time, they don't have anything that's connecting why 10 separate people that worked on the same floor would all have some form of a brain tumor. And so I think that it's a really interesting discussion and obviously horrifying. And there are a lot of things that are negative to your health. Well, obviously just living, existing in this world, we know that there's a lot of things in like food, environment, vaccines, medicine, air, whatever. But there are also, especially for healthcare workers, if you're working on a third shift type situation and you have a lot of bright blue light exposure at night, like they often do, that can be a contributing factor. However, if it was simply that, or if it was simply something coming from the hospital, you would not think that it would all be confined to one particular floor. And the other thing that this article talks about is the fact that although this is an affluent type town and it's considered a clean town, actually when they were looked at for their water quality, they definitely have some cancer causing particulates in the water and and that kind of thing. But once again, you would think that you would be getting more people than just one single floor in a hospital that would be causing that. So just wanted to bring that out and see what y'all thought about it.
Yeah, that's it's kind of interesting. I mean, it's easy to point to the elephant in the room, but there are we now have that as an umbrella to cover up maybe a whole bunch of other things that they might be, let's say, experimenting on. Who knows? Who knows what they're up to? Dastardly demons.
Terry, what do you think?
You'll have to unmute Mr. Canary.
Sorry about that. Yes, sometimes I forget to do that. The Epoch Times had this story 10 days ago, I think it was. And at the time, it said there were 6 employees. So I guess I've identified more since then. And they said, they've investigated lots of things like the air conditioning system to remove toxic chemicals and looking at masks, because a lot of them were wearing masks a lot of the time, and the usual thing, and they're saying there's no evidence of any problems. But one thing they did mention, which you didn't mention, Ashley, was that they said they did actually carry out some x-rays on that floor with portable machines. Some 668 x-rays were done between 2020 and 2024. But seemingly they've checked these machines and they say that there's no problem with them. But if they are leaking x-rays, that could probably account for some of the brain tumors. They just take 140 machine, and if they're wheeling it around and presumably a lot of different nurses are using this machine or close to this machine when it's being used, that could be something. But they haven't found anything yet.
Exactly.
And even if they did, they probably wouldn't let us know anyway. Nothing wrong with those machines. Nuh-uh.
Was it
Right.
just nurses, or are there other employees at that location that
So-
were getting sick?
The 10 that have reported are nurses, but one of the people that I was looking up for extra information on this said that somebody else from the hospital who was not on that floor in the nursing unit also had a cancer diagnosis. But in this particular case, it's the 10 that we're talking about. And then, as we said, yes, they do have a portable x-ray machine. And Jason was saying over in the comments that that of course, like the EMF factor should be looked at. And I think all of that should be on the table. But and not surprisingly, but the nurses are feeling like they are being shut down. So what Stella was saying, like if something did become obvious, they're not going to say it. Now, I think that the best case scenario would be if these people come together and they pursue some sort of a lawsuit to get the information that they're after. Because after the hospital did the CDC guided investigation, they didn't find anything. So they are now asking for an independent investigation, which of course should be done. It's insanity that you would even have to ask for that. And one of the people that I found who was making content on this was a career nurse. And she was saying that these people should also contact the nurses union in their area and try to make some contact with them. And there's apparently some other people that are fearful of speaking out. And I guess because if they're maybe worried about their job safety. They're worried about their health insurance, you know, which I understand, but this is a really serious situation. And I think a lot of investigating needs to be done to figure out what exactly is going on here. But it's scary, and it's scary that you would think that this would raise the flag all the way up to the top whenever it's getting this kind of attention. It's being talked about in so many places, and yet once again, it's really getting squashed.
Yeah, they're really making sure that everybody, with all of the other things that are going on, with all the meme lockups in the UK and Europe, and the whistleblowers that are just getting nabbed, they're really making sure that everybody has this cloak of fear about speaking up about anything. So they're really pushing that. So yeah, that's the thing. It's never straightforward, is it? It's always complicated, because if it was straightforward, you'd be able to probably figure it out in a couple of days. But there's always other things enter into. You can't say this because of fear of that, and you're going to lose your health insurance and blah 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 blah. Yeah,
I didn't catch. Were they all working in the same area of the hospital?
Yes.
Okay.
They were
Same
all
floor.
on the same floor. So, and by the way, I don't think I mentioned this, but it's the Mass General Brigham or the Newton Wesley Hospital in Massachusetts. And they were all on the 5th floor, which is the maternity ward.
Yeah, see, if it was straightforward, can you imagine all the lawsuits that would open up? Because it's probably not just nurses that have been affected. God knows how many babies are going to end up sick in a few years or what have you. We won't probably hear about that, but
this is true. And I think potentially the saving grace would be, hopefully the babies are not spending very much time there. In a normal situation, if somebody has a normal, healthy birth, they're there for 24 hours once they give birth, and they're gone. So hopefully that is a saving grace. But yeah, I thought about the same thing. I was like, if this is radiation, where are the kids? Are they just laying in this high radiation zone that nobody's caring about, nobody's worried about? And then the other thing is that if a baby was in the NICU or something like that, then sometimes they're there for a very long time. If they're prenatal, they could be there for many weeks. Yes. So it is very concerning, but I just hope that most of the babies are in and out and onto a healthier situation.
Terry?
I mean, just to say, it's just seems highly unlikely that these things are going to happen by chance. I mean, presumably a lot of these nurses are in the prime of their life. They're not all coming up to retirement age where you might expect more brain tumors to happen. So to have 10 brain tumors amongst staff working on the floor, I don't know how many staff they got working on the floor, probably less than 100. Maybe in the tens. It just seems highly unlikely that could happen by chance, I think.
I would say it's a pretty good amount of people that are working just because of the size of the hospital. But yeah, even if it's 10 and then they're rotating on shifts, it may be more than 10. Hard to say, but it's still incredibly strange. And that's what one of the her handle, I think, was Nurse Erica, but she was saying, what are the odds, that this many people working on the same floor over years of a time span are coming up with this, but yet not. And even if there were a couple of other people in the hospital that had it, but not at this rate. So it's very, very sketchy, very strange.
It certainly is.
Yeah, that's what I was asking, if they were all working in the same area, because I don't know if this hospital has 20,000 employees or something, and 10 of them got sick. That probably would be a lot more reasonable than if it's 100 nurses in one area and 10 of them got sick. That's pretty crazy.
I wonder how many people are employed in a hospital generally. It's a fairly decent question, actually. No idea. Probably more than you'd think.
Yeah. Oh, well, this is the other thing. This hospital is huge, but the other thing that makes it a little more difficult to tell is because a lot of them are involved in networks. So according to this article, over 1,000 people were just let go from the hospital. So that means it is a massive hospital because most of them were not even client facing. meaning administration type roles or some sort of ancillary role, whether that would even mean from like the kitchen or janitorial or whatever. But basically that they were mostly not patient facing. Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, right.
Thanks to Leo Brave's wonderful AI plugin, I've just found out that it employs about 2,500 people. I wouldn't say it doesn't seem like a huge hospital to me. So I think it's even more unlikely you'd get 10 people on the same floor with brain tumors. Is it definitely 10, Ashley? Because I keep seeing stories that it's 5 or 6.
No, well, according to William Mackis's article that was posted as of April the 8th, it is saying 10. And I saw some people that were saying it's more than that, and then other people were saying that that is not confirmed.
That old chestnut.
I also had found out from a personal experience. My daughter had an emergency room visit when she was little, that they have traveling staff at the hospitals as well. So they're not necessarily all employed by the hospital. And the way we found out was we had to pay this doctor's extra fee that the insurance wouldn't cover because he wasn't actually an employee at the hospital. So he was able to charge us separately from the hospital. Yeah, we didn't pick him. That was just who they sent to talk to her.
Yep. And sometimes places, it's like an entire...
Sorry, I was going to ask Perm if he had to pay his green fees as well.
Yeah, probably that's what it went to, for his Porsche car payment.
Yeah, I was going to say that that is an entire industry in and of itself, is having travel nurses and travel hospital staff that will go out on, usually it's a 3-month contract that they will go somewhere. Sorry, my dog was making a ruckus. But basically that these hospitals, especially after everything happened with the vaccine mandate and they were short-staffed, then they would hire a lot of traveling nurses as well. But it sounded like the people that were affected here, at least that we know about at this time, were full-time employees in this facility.
Hey, well, there you go. The joys of being a nurse.
Yeah. Yeah. And just being, in my opinion, just being kind of a cog in what is the medical industrial complex wheel at this day and time. It's been turned into such a monstrosity. And as we've talked about, I believe that is intentional because they want to make people maybe have such a distrust of the system that they are much more willing to use the AI program. And just imagine how much they're going to be able to cut down costs when they can use a computer program. And, even if most people resist it, I don't know, maybe we can make a difference, but how long can you really hold out? Because what the other issue that we have seen is that, especially here in the States, is that the medical facilities are owned by megacorp. Basically, it might as well be one thing because, and I talk about this all the time, but many years ago, you used to be able to just have an independent family doctor that you could go to, or an independent pediatrician that you could take your kids to. But gradually, what you have had is these big corporations buy them out. So now in an entire area, you may only have like 2 separate health entities that you could go to. Now they have a lot of offshoots of that and a lot of general practitioners and a lot of this and a lot of that, but they are all working for the same people. So I think that has worked to make it easier for them to, when they want to start nudging your behavior, well, you can't be a client here unless you agree for your medical information to be scanned by AI. Oh, well, you can't get your prescription until you've had a consultation with the AI doctor. And what are you supposed to do? And people, the insurance companies and the medical companies will work together in order to nudge that behavior. Terry?
Yeah, they got you by the short and curlies.
Yeah, I was just going to back up what you were saying, Ash, because that shouldn't be dismissed as a factor in these nurses getting sick, because particularly, during and after COVID, it turned what was already a highly stressful job into a pretty damn awful job, really. And I suspect a lot of them at some level are realizing that not only are they not helping their patients, they're in some cases actively conspiring to kill their patients. So that's not a good thing to be living with. Plus, they had the stress of going through the vaccine mandates. They had to decide whether to go along with it or lose their job. So the jobs turned into a bit of a nightmare, really. And all that stress piled on to what was already a very stressful job is going to make them sick in some form or another.
Very true. Look, shout out to all the nurses out there and the good doctors that are, thousands of you are listening. But we love you.
I was just saying in the chat that Birdhouse was saying that he doesn't even know what to do when he's sick because he doesn't want to go to the hospital. And I was saying that I had been going through some physical issues, or I didn't say that in the chat, but I joined a direct primary care provider recently, and I pay a monthly subscription fee, and they don't accept insurance, and they're not held to standards of the insurance companies. I would say they are held to higher standards by their own morals. But my first day meeting, it's 2 doctors that run the practice. It's just them. There was no administrative person. There was no front desk. I sat down with them for over 2 hours on my first visit, and we went over everything as far as like everything I can remember from when I was a kid till now, my family history and everything. I don't really have a actual medical file like in the system because I don't go to doctors. So we just had to do this from my memory. And we spent hours together. They rushed me to get blood work and a CT scan. I got that all done within 48 hours. And they had me back, and we sat there and just casually went over everything for an hour and a half. And I'd never felt cared about from doctors since I was like a little kid with my pediatrician, who was like a nice old guy in the 80s. But I think if you can afford it, which I don't like paying this $150 a month because I probably won't see them again for 10 years, but it is peace of mind to me now. So I know if I really do need to speak to a doctor, and they let me text them, and they can get me in within 24 hours if I need to. So there are options out there, is all I'm saying.
Is that a sort of a standard thing,
Right.
or is that very localized to your crew?
It's pretty new. So it's going on everywhere, I think, but it's pretty new.
Very expensive, isn't it? But But then I guess, eventually if you had to have something done and it was, 50 grand or something, then you will be ahead. So it's it's all a gamble. Insurance is always a gamble. It's sort of like
they
insurance,
recommend you keeping your insurance because if you have an actual emergency where you have to go to a hospital, you don't want to be on the hook for a $200,000 hospital bill or something.
And I wanted to chime in as well that I do a similar thing. So we originally, when we moved back to this area, we were in the system of like if you want to be referred to this other doctor, like a dermatologist, you have to be in the system. You have to go to a general practitioner in our network that is also accepted by your insurance and blah, blah, blah. Well, I obviously I never was a fan, but became very disillusioned after COVID. We know that. And I did not want to go to a place that was trying to force me to wear a mask, that was trying to get me in the pharmaceutical pipeline for the rest of my life, which they always want to do. And so I also was lucky enough to have a situation like Perm. So this particular doctor that I go to has a very similar setup. And the way that they started was because he was an emergency room physician. He did not want to be forced to take the vaccine. And they were willing to lose an emergency room physician and nurses that worked there that were administrative nurses or like the head of the nursing program in the emergency room over the mandate. So they ended up leaving. They started their own practice. It started as infusions, like health infusions for immunity and hydration and this, that, and the other thing. Then it spawned into them having their own general practitioner practice. Now they have added more practitioners. They do have a naturopath there, and they also have their own little offshoot of an urgent care, and they work on the same model. So basically, like, you pay a monthly rate based on your age, and then they have, family plans and things like that. So you can get in you're guaranteed within 48 hours. You can even do a teledoc if something comes up. So I had a cut that I was worried about from Jamaica. We'll talk about what I think about Jamaica later, but I'm just saying I was worried about it. She did a Zoom call with me just to look at it. Everything was fine. I survived Jamaica. Thank goodness. But anyway, so I do think these places are popping up, but unfortunately you still have to have health insurance because of exactly what Big Perm said. If you have some sort of triage type emergency, then you can't not be in a good situation, like with health insurance, going to the emergency room. Or even if you're traveling out of town and you got really ill, you need to be able to go somewhere because your regular doctor's not there.
Yeah, that's it. Got to cover all avenues. Just don't get sick.
Yep, that's it. Just keep it simple.
Stay
However,
healthy, people.
here's the thing. I wasn't sick. I fell on a dirty Jamaican rock. It's another issue. And I tried my best. I was trying to be safety first, but sometimes it's a dirty Jamaican rock and your shoes are slippery and the rock is slippery. And next thing you know, you're worried that you're going to lose your leg.
Yes. Yes, hospitals are not good places for sick people at all.
No, and we know
Or
about
injured people.
during COVID times, we've talked about that many times here, is the death protocol basically that they put them on, which was remdesivir and ventilator. And so it's dangerous. You have to definitely advocate for yourself and try to stay out of that system as best as you can.
And advocate for your loved ones if they happen to be in hospital. That's
absolutely
couldn't be stressed even more. I mean, like, especially I remember when Binkley had his parents going through, and he really stressed that. And I've heard a few people say the same thing since. So yeah, you've got to be really awake with that, because I mean, it's true. Even myself, my past experiences of being in a hospital is like, just do what you're told. They know best. They know what they're doing. You just, do whatever they say, basically. And now it's like, no, I'll be questioning everything if I ever have the misfortune to be in one again. But yeah, definitely, you got to stay on top of it, be the squeakiest wheel, scream loudly.
That's it. You have to
ask
go
a million questions, because these
Yes.
people, your loved ones might be incapacitated or whatever. So
Yep. You have to go into bulldog mode. I'm sorry that you may not like what I'm asking you. You may not like being challenged, but I don't care, because guess what is the third leading cause of death in the United States? Medical mistakes. So you absolutely have to get on your A game, and you have to be willing to make these people uncomfortable. It doesn't matter, because it literally could be life and death for your loved one. You have to advocate. You have to be a bulldog in those situations. And if you don't know what questions to ask your friends, and ask questions and ask more questions. Terry.
Sure.
Just finally to add on what you're saying there, that most experts think that if it was analysed properly, medical errors would be the leading cause of death in the United States. And talking about advocates, there's a book, I can't remember the title, it was written by a doctor, and it was all about how to survive in hospital and how to make sure your loved ones survive in hospital. He thought it was so important, he wrote a book about it. And one of the big things, like you were both saying, is getting someone to advocate for you, because often you're in there and you're ill, you're not really able to stick up for yourself, so you need someone you can trust to do it for you.
Do you think you would be able to find a link to that book, please, Terry? Because I think that would interest a lot of people, certainly myself. I mean, it would be applicable globally, I would imagine, within reason.
Yes.
Yeah, we can throw it in our show notes.
I'm sure I can find it. I think I've got it on my Kindle, actually. I just can't remember.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
And just wanted to point out, just going back a little bit to where the when we were talking about the stuff. Oh, hang on. Yeah, the stuff going into the baskets and that at the checkouts. Dreamreel has just pointed out that it was a place called Uniqlo. Have you heard of them? Uniqlo. All these places that are really hard to say. It's weird spellings. You haven't heard of that? So maybe it's not an American thing. Not sure.
Oh no, I've never heard of that.
Okay.
But maybe that's I don't know. Maybe that's just
It could
the
be
store.
regional. We have a lot
Yeah.
of different stores that aren't all over the country, but they just happen to be in certain regions.
Yeah, and they always try these things out in very small areas, don't they? Very,
Right.
Very carefully selected demographics.
That's it. Their little trial balloon.
Yep.
Other than Amazon, they try it all in Seattle.
I think
Yeah.
I think they have this system in the UK. Are we talking about where you just put things in your basket and it's automatically charged and deducted from your card or whatever? Yeah, they I'm pretty sure they have that in some supermarkets in the UK.
Yeah, and a great point from Gentleman Skeptic over on YouTube. Get an advanced healthcare directive and appoint an agent you trust. Absolutely. I think that's a great point. And then the other thing is like a will, a living will. All of these things are a good idea to sort of have in place for yourself, even if they're not pleasant to do. So, but the advanced healthcare directive could help you make decisions for you based on what situation that you may find yourself in if you don't have the ability to communicate that at that time. So I guess that's kind of like a living will.
Yes, and sorry to flip-flop around on subjects here, but just going back again to the checkout thing. I don't know if it's the same over there, but over here in Australia, they're sort of making it really annoying when you get to the checkouts in the sense of, there's very few humans left. There's usually maybe 1 or 2 humans on a checkout, and then you've got your auto checkout machines, and then you've also got the separate checkout machines, which some you can get cash out from. But there's usually only 2 out of about a dozen that you can do that. And of course, there's never any organization like this. I've said this to the people so many times. It's so logical, but nobody does it. They should be standing there and saying, do you want cash out? Because there's always someone loitering around watching you put your PIN number in. But they should be saying, do you want cash out? No? Okay, then they direct them over to that machine so that the ones that you want cash from, because sometimes people come through and that's all they want. They just want to get cash out. They don't even want to buy anything. So, yeah, it's just really – so I don't know. I just think it's all by design sort of thing. It's like even some of the self-checkout things, they're even roped off. And it's like, why are they roped off? There's a bunch of people here. Why are they roped off? Why aren't they open to operate, to get the flow going? And it's like, I'm sure it's just they're purposely doing it so that, yeah, when these schemes suddenly get, put into place, it's like everyone goes, oh, yay, great idea. So much more convenient.
Yeah, I personally hate self-checkout. I've had this conversation with Ismcamp before because he likes self-checkout, but I always try to go to a person because I can't stand self-checkout and I don't get paid to work here, okay? So,
exactly. Yeah.
And my mom's worked at the grocery store for like 45 years and she's railed against self-checkout for like 15 of them. And I'm like, I'm not waiting in line for your two lanes for half an hour when I can just go scan my stuff in 30 seconds and be out of here. So,
I'll wait in line.
It's my bad, but I ain't got time for this shit.
Ain't nobody got time for that. So Uniqlo, thank you, Dreamreel, is a Japanese company, and they have 39 stores in Australia. Wow, never heard of them. Okay. I don't get out much.
Yeah, and then also, Gentleman Skeptic said that if,
yeah, exactly.
If I have to scan my own groceries, I want my damned employee discount. Exactly. But
there was no incentive, was there, for anybody?
Right.
Well, I use her phone number, so I do get an employee discount every time I work there.
There you go. And then really quick, we are flip-flopping, but stay with us. Gentleman Skeptic had said to get a pre-need funeral plan. It's the one that your policy you're guaranteed to use. So I guess just try to, do some lookout on these things to make sure you have your affairs covered in the event of incapacitation or leaving this mortal coil.
Yeah, now, those funeral plans can be a good idea. However, well, my mum has decided she had one for a little while, and she just decided to pull it out and put it into her own account so that she got the interest on the money and just have that aside, like that's her funeral account, basically. So, I mean, it takes a bit of discipline, of course, but that's sort of, I don't know, just it's that little bit extra. Because, I mean, I often wonder about these people. What happens if they all go out of business all of a sudden? It's like, what happens to your funeral plan then, sort of thing? So you got to cover your own ass these days.
Definitely do. But it is a good idea either way, whether you have some kind of plan or savings account for that, because it can absolutely be really difficult for the family. Obviously, the emotional toll, but financially as well.
True.
It's not easy or affordable to be able to lay someone to rest in, in style, if that's your thing.
That's true. And even when someone passes away, even if you're their power of attorney or what have you, it's still a really big, long process to be able to access another person's account. That can take months and months. And obviously a funeral has to be paid for before then. So yeah, you've got to have these discussions with your parents and just everybody. I mean, you don't have to be old to kick the bucket these days, do you? I'll get a brain tumor or something. So yeah, you've got to have these discussions, those awkward, inconvenient, nasty discussions.
Yeah. Now, speaking of leaving this mortal coil,
yes.
Stella, what do you have for us?
Not a whole lot, because I'm certainly not an expert on any of this, but I was just going to mention the Pope. Mr. Pope, who died on Easter Monday. Yeah, sure he did. Yeah. I reckon he's probably been in the fridge for about a month or so. Whatever. Just next to the butter. But some interesting things. Nostradamus, as well as one or two others, did have a prophecy about the final Pope. And he seems to kind of fit the bill, because this Pope was he was a first in quite a number of things, actually. Let me find this. Excuse me. He was the first in had it all ready to go. Sorry about that. Just talk amongst yourselves for a moment.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say on this particular
here we go.
guy. And I will say before you're going back into your story, that he's been a very divisive character indeed amongst Catholics and non-Catholics alike.
Well, that's sort of partly that is part of the prophecy, actually. I mean, they call it the See, right? SEE. And the last Pope would be there, and he would weaken the See. So, I mean, he was a very, DEI woke Pope. But he was he was the very first Jesuit Pope as well, which is kind of weird, because basically the Jesuits were sort of looked on as suspicion from Rome, basically. So to have a Jesuit Pope is kind of weird. But anyway, he was the first Pope also to be actually, even though he had Italian, origins, family lines. Excuse me, just one moment. There's trouble with getting me in the morning. Yeah, he had a lot of Italian in his family lines, but he was actually born in Argentina. So he was sort of the first South Hemispherean Pope. He was also the first Jesuit, yes. Also the Pope before him was the first one to voluntarily give up his papacy in about 600 years, and there was 2 popes for about a decade. Yeah, there's just some strange things about him that makes me think, because we're getting into the one world everything, this could be coming true. This could be the final Pope, or maybe the one that's incoming will be the final Pope. That could be the Black Pope. So it'll be interesting to see. The Vatican is also known as the City of 7 Hills, so you're probably going to hear that coming up here and there. But anyway, just pointing out those little weedy things. It'll be interesting to see if there is an incoming dude, or to actually look into who that person is and his background or what have you. Because I don't think it's going to be a standard Pope somehow, if there is one at all. So watch the space. I'm sure we'll be talking about this in 6 months.
Yeah, definitely.
Or even 1 month.
I think that that is a really good point. There's a lot of interesting, odd things about him. So yes, being of the Latin origin, even though, like you said, he has some Italian family lineage. And then I'm not super well versed on all this stuff, but my understanding is that if a pope is a Jesuit, or if somebody is a Jesuit, that means that they are from the military branch of the Catholic Church. Can somebody clarify that for me?
It's the Order of the Christian something or other. I'd have to look it up again. I
I
mean, you
know a
hear
lot
this
of the
stuff all
Trump
time.
kids went to Jesuit Georgetown University.
Yeah, right.
I just thought that was a coincidence with us having the first Jesuit pope at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then collecting unfiltered news said that I heard JD Vance killed the Pope. There's certainly been memes about that.
Yeah. So it's also known as the Society of Jesus. So yeah, I mean, another inversion.
Yeah,
I mean, you put Jesus in there or
I
the
think
Christian
there
something or
were-
other, and they get away with everything. Go ahead, Terry.
I think a lot of people have thought of them as the sort of strong arm part of the Catholic Church, the sort of kind of enforcers. They've had a bit of a reputation of going around sort of, bringing people back into line if they're too heretical or something. Not quite like the Spanish Inquisition, but I believe they have that sort of reputation. And they're a bit like a kind of secret society within the Catholic Church. So yeah, it doesn't.
Well, I mean, you got the white.
My feeling about
Pope and the
mainstream
black
religion. I'm
Pope.
very skeptical about it all.
Gentleman Skeptic
well, maybe
is saying there's
apparently one of the leading contenders. Sorry, I was just going to say one of the leading contenders to be the new pope is an African guy. So that would literally be a black pope.
Oh, okay. Literally, wow. Gentleman Skeptic is saying there's a video from Archbishop Vigano from back in February that said that the Pope was already deceased. That would not surprise me at all. We've probably been looking at a deep fake and a silicon dummy.
Vigano's a really good guy. He's been slagging off the Pope for ages.
He has. He
was very anti-COVID stuff.
I know, but the fact that he's still alive just makes me very suspicious. I don't know.
Oh, still.
You know me. Suspicious of everything that moves.
So I have been curious because we've had some people in the comments saying that the leader of the Jesuits is known as the Black Pope, which we have talked about here. But was this Pope considered a Black Pope? He was. Okay.
Well, he was a Jesuit.
Okay, so
this
automatically,
could have been the Black Pope. He could have been the Black Pope.
If you're a Jesuit and you are the Pope, then you're considered a Black Pope. Because I thought that this is what I'm just showing my ignorance here, because I thought there was like 3 separate popes within the Catholic Church at any given time. So I didn't know
about that. Not sure. I think there's probably in the assistant Pope.
Well, I thought that you had the leaders of the Jesuit, the leader of the Vatican, and then maybe the leader of something else. So that's what I was curious about. So Gentleman Skeptic did say that he was the only Jesuit to ever become the Pope.
Yeah, I said that. Yep, he was.
Yeah, that's right.
I remember that.
Well, you need a backup Pope, I suppose, in an emergency, in case your first one breaks down. So, yeah, maybe
that's right. Yeah,
there are 3 popes.
Yeah, they got a spare hanging around. I think there's a grey Pope too. In fact, Aunt Laura, she's a bit of she knows quite a lot about this stuff. She actually does some. Andy from WTF Forum, his auntie, she does some really good research on the this subject, and we could put it in the show notes perhaps, because I can't remember the name of her podcast, but we'll whack it in. Make a note. If anyone's
I think if I can add something, the podcasters I listen to who are Catholics, and there are a few people like Tom Woods, really hate the last Pope who's just died, because a lot of the stuff he did was against Catholic teaching. And my wife Fiona makes the point that he was very in favour of the COVID jabs, despite their connection to, the fact that they were created using aborted tissue. Not actually in the jabs themselves, but certainly in the research that were creating the sort of precursors to the things that were released on the public. That was definitely using aborted fetal tissue. So I can't see how a Catholic could be in favour of that.
Yeah, I didn't pay
So you
too
could
much
argue he
attention
wasn't
to
even
the Pope, but I remember hearing people say that he was saying to get the vaccines and that it was okay that they were keeping them home from church or something like that during the lockdowns, and doesn't seem
Yeah.
very
That's right.
Christian.
Oh, there's so much about the.
Mhm.
Sorry to all the really true, lovely, beautiful Catholics out there, but there's so much about the Catholic Church that's just so inverted. I don't know how people can't see it. It's so obvious, but their faith is so strong, So kudos to that. But
Yeah.
take a look at take a look. There's a direct line. You don't have to go through a church. You just go direct to God. That's all I have to say about that.
I think you can make a good case that it's been heavily infiltrated, particularly going back to what they call Vatican II, which is when they sort of switched around and started supporting all this woke stuff and DEI and all the terrible stuff that the Catholic Church seem to be in favour of now. So I think we're probably targeted by the CIA amongst other organisations, but. I'm with you, Stella. I mean, you can go back through the history of the Catholic Church and the church in general, and it's hard to pick a time when they were doing good stuff. Really, they all seem to be involved in evil deeds.
Yep. And I mean, look at the architecture of the Vatican. For goodness' sake, look at it from an aerial point of view. It's been built. It's purposely. The whole thing is just a big control mechanism. So, and it's worked perfectly. Well done.
All right, everybody. Well, I think we have covered a nice array of topics for this evening. We've gotten some really good thoughts and a lot of input from a very active chat in YouTube and on Rumble, which we very much appreciate. We also did get a tip from Knights of the Storm, Jason Barker. Thank you so much for that. It is truly appreciated. And so before we sign off, does anybody have anything that they would like to share? Stella, you want to tell people where they can find your show?
Oh, okay. If anyone's interested in weather stuff and looking into weather events or learning a little bit about how weather works and clouds and chemtrails and contrails and all those things, you can go to YouTube, Stella Q Australia, and there's a podcast link there. Whether or Not is the name of the series. That would be lovely. Or you can just carry on your day and completely ignore me. But thanks for having me.
All right, perfect. Well, Perm and Terry, let's start with Terry. Terry, do you want to shout out your website?
Well, I could shout out my very old WordPress site, which hasn't been updated for about 5 years. So I don't really think that's probably worthwhile. This might prompt me to get my Substack going, which I've been promising people for a long time.
Yeah, that would be great. And I thought you had some of the Union of the Unknowns connection with your Terry Canary website, maybe?
Oh, well, I've got you. You can go to terrycanary.com or you can go to notyourmamasnews.com, which are two sites I've nabbed for us. But they all would take us to, where will they take us to, Ashley? Where can the people find us?
Well, Terry, I'm glad you asked. They can go to our Linktree page, which is unionoftheunknowns.com. That has all the myriad ways to get in touch with us, from our Discord to our Gmail, Twitter handles, all that good stuff. And we would love to hear from you. And we do have, a lot of the people are either in Discord or over on Twitter. And I just want to say thank you again to everybody who was watching the show live or watching it later. We really appreciate it. And I appreciate Stella, Terry, and Perm for being here this evening. I had a lot of fun. I always do have fun with you. And then really quick before we go, I just wanted to see if Perm had anything he wanted to share.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I love hanging out with all you guys. And this has been the most fun I've ever had in the chat. it feels like we have a dozen more people that are podcasting with us. You know, we don't see their face, but we see everything that they're saying, and we get to interact on both YouTube and Rumble at the same time. So it's been a lot of fun.
Sure has, and I would like to echo all those lovely sentiments. And also, we appreciate you, Miss Ashley, for being our podcast
sure
producer type person, techo chick, and hell of a host.
Thank you very, very much. What is the person at the the ringleader?
She's the one to blame, people.
Yes.
Blame me, and unfortunately, I don't have a top hat. I would really love a top hat. But okay, with that being said, thank you everybody so much. I really appreciate it. I had a great time tonight, and I will look forward to talking to everybody later. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Love you guts.
Bye.
Not Your Mama's News has been a production of the Union of the Unknowns podcast. New episodes are available weekly on all your favorite podcasting networks.